start with the question of the day. So the question that I would be dealing today is a very simple question, that is outline the Government of India's strategy for the conservation of the Western Ghats. So recently Western Ghats have been lot in news, and conservation of Western Ghats, there have been many committees, the pollution related issues that has been in the Western Ghats. So this theme becomes important. And what is the question? The question is outline the Government of India's strategy, the strategy of Indian government to conserve the Western Ghat, right? So here the keywords have been marked in the yellow color, the Government of India's strategy and the conservation of the Western Ghat. What is the question about? The question is about the Western Ghat. The question is, the subject matter is the Western Ghat. This is the subject matter. This is the question about. And what is the demand of the question? The demand of the question is, we have to point out at the Government of India's strategy for the conservation of the Western Ghat. Whatever steps, whatever is the strategy that the Indian government follow for the conservation of the Western Ghat, that we have to write. When we know the demand of the question, what should we write first, what should we write later, that comes into picture. So you know that the introduction and the conclusion, they are the story changers. The body remains the same. The body is about the strategy of the Government of India. Okay, so how do you make the answer in a particular flow? So you can either start, so this is one type of storyline, that is, you can start with the fact. Any fact about the Western Ghat, the extent, the area, the type of biodiversity that the Western Ghat has. Then you can draw a diagram of Western Ghat and some of the important regions. Try to have a labeled diagram. Do not simply draw like this. Do not simply show this is the Western Ghat. This diagram is not adding value for my answer. So you started with a fact, then you drew a well labeled diagram. Then you can write about there are environmental issues in Western Ghats. There are environmental issues, and therefore there is a conservation strategy. The conservation strategy is what? That you have to write. This is the main demand of the question, and you have to write in the conclusion you can write what would be the impact of this conservation strategy. What would be the impact of this conservation strategy? This is one type of writing. This is one story that your answer can have. There is other story also, like you can start with the context. The context, like the Western Ghats have been in news recently because of the pollution related and the environmental issues. Therefore, the conservation of Western Ghats becomes lot important. And then you draw a diagram of the Western Ghat, well labeled diagram. You write about the importance of the Western Ghat, that Western Ghat is important and therefore we need to conserve. This is the conservation strategy that is followed by the Government of India, and this strategy is there, but we need something more. So this can be the two type of stories. You can start with a fact, draw the diagram, tell the main demand, and then you say what would be the impact of the conservation strategy. Or you start with the context that there are issues, we know the Western Ghat is important, and therefore we have this conservation strategy. However, we need something more. So these are the two type of storylines which will help you write an answer to this question. What is the common mistake that a student would do in such type of question? A very common mistake that a student would do is they would only write about the committees. They would write conservation strategy. We have went for committee. There are two committees. One committee is your Kasturi Rangan committee. The other committee is your Madhav Gadgil committee. And you will only write what strategies these two committees have suggested. You understand the questions like these are open-ended questions. They actually give you that is a venue for you to score more marks, right? So that is a platter that is served that now you actually play here. So now don't restrict yourself to what you have read recently. Government of India strategy, there would be many dimensions to the strategy. There would be hill area development, there would be biodiversity conservation, there would be certain committees. Then you want to conserve the Western Ghat. You also talk about the traditional knowledge, that the Government of India is promoting the traditional knowledge like the watershed development. So try to, even in your mains examination, do not stop. Do not stop with what you have read recently. It's an open field. Try to utilize, integrate the knowledge that you have into the answer. So integrating the topic is something that not many candidates would do. Rather, they would simply restrict their answer to these two committees. It's a very short-term perspective if you tend to do so. Okay, now dealing with the question that is the Western Ghat question. This is the question. This is the first draft wherein the common mistakes are fairly visible. You can see that the question is outline the strategy. Outline the strategy of the government of India for the conservation of the Western Ghat. So here the introduction is fine. The introduction says that there was a recent report, World Heritage Outlook Report 2020 by IUCN. So IUCN gave this World Heritage Outlook Report, okay, and it places Western Ghats in the category of the significant concern. So there is significant concern for the Western Ghats because there has been lot of threats like the mining, agricultural expansion, poaching, hydropower projects. So lot many things have been actually, they are exploiting the Western Ghats like agriculture, hydropower projects, mining, poaching. So so what we have said that yes, Western Ghat is an area of concern, and the area of concern, and because of our activities, the activities that have been mentioned, and then you can show the diagram of the Western Ghat. Okay. Now we'll come to the main point, that is, but this type of diagram will not help you because it is not well labeled. So this, don't try to attempt this type of diagram. We will see in details what more can you add in your diagram. So the introduction is fine. The introduction is fine that the report says it is an area of concern and these are the areas of concern. And then you say that, okay, this is the location. And now what are the strategies that the government of India would do? Here also the similar mistake. The person has restricted themselves only to the Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel Gadgil Committee, and it has restricted to the Kasturi Rangan Committee. This is the reason why, because they have recently read this in news. So then they only tend to write about the committees. It is not just these two committees that will point out the strategy of the conservation for the Western Ghat. There are many dimensions that you can bring forward in your answer. So try to make your answer multi-dimensional, right? Then here also, if you look at the conclusion, that the recommendation of both the committees, both the committees have not been implemented. So it's again very committee specific. It says that the committee's recommendation has not been implemented and Western Ghat still continues to be the area of concern. The Western Ghat is still continuing to be area of concern because the recommendation of the committee has not been met. If this answer has become very committee specific, you need to include the broader dimension. Now, discussing the model answer with you, discussing that what could you have done better. So this answer, that is outline the strategy of the government of India for the conservation of the Western Ghat. The introduction has been kept same. The introduction is yes, the World Heritage Outlook Report by IUCN qualifies it to be the of the significant concern, and there are many threats, like this. Hence, the conservation of Western Ghat is important. The conservation of Western Ghat is important due to its very significant role in conservation of ecology, etc. And then here in the Western Ghat, you can show some of the biosphere reserves, like you can show Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, you can show Agasthamalai Biosphere Reserve, right? You can show the Western Ghats different local names of Western Ghats. Okay, so this will make your answer more labeled. Also, along with this, the person concerned has written about the importance of the Western Ghat. We know the Western Ghat is under the area of concern, but Western Ghat is important. The importance of Western Ghat is what? It influences the monsoon pattern. Okay, so Western Ghat, it try to influence the amount of rainfall on the windward side of the mountain and on the leeward side of the mountain. So the monsoon pattern is also influenced or the rainfall pattern is influenced by Western Ghat. It is one of the biodiversity hotspot. It is the biodiversity hotspot, one of the very famous biodiversity hotspot in the world, and it is also source of major rivers like Godavari, Krishna, and it is also UNESCO World Heritage Site. So such an importance of Western Ghat. It is a biodiversity hotspot, lot many flora, fauna, endemic species. Every year you will see a frog. A new frog species has emerged in the Western Ghat. So the important flora, fauna, climate, the controlling the climate change, sequestration of carbon, right? So you can write these things. Carbon sequestration also can be written. This is the source of major rivers, World Heritage Site. So you can write about these. Then the effort for the conservation of the Western Ghats. What efforts have been taken? The Western Ghats, in the Western Ghats, the biosphere reserves have been declared. The national parks, biosphere reserves. So what will that happen because of that? It will be kept inviolate. It will be kept inviolate, right? It will not be touched upon by a particular project. So there have been many protected areas that is created, like the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, Agastya Malai Biosphere Reserve. There has been the national parks like the Bandipur National Park, and the other national parks can also be written. So what will happen because of this is, the area would become protected. There would be no harm of the anthropogenic activities. Then we know we are concerned about the Western Ghats. We have set up committees like the Ghatkil Committee and the Kasturi Rangan Committee. What have they done? They have qualified, they have categorized the area of Western Ghat as the ecologically sensitive area. So this ecologically sensitive area will help what? It will help maintain development plus environment sustainability. So there will be development as well as environment sustainability, right? So this is the second strategy. What is the first strategy? Protect as much as you can. That is the first strategy of the government of India. Second, balance the economic needs as well as the environment. Then even in the Western Ghat, there are many regions. So the Western Ghat also, they have not dealt the entire Western Ghat in one entirety. There are region specific plans. There are like the Hill Area Development Program. They also, the Tribal Area Development Program, Hill Area Development Program. So these regional specific programs also help in focusing the ecological conservation and integration. And then we also said there is revival of the traditional knowledge also. The traditional knowledge is also incorporated in the conservation, like the integrated watershed development. So the integrated watershed development is used for the conservation of the water resources. So what has Government of India done? It has conserved the forests because they have retained ESA. It has maintained sustainability because they have protected areas. It has maintained the control. It has controlled the water resources, prevented the too much exploitation of the water resources because of the watershed. There is regional specific plans also, like the hill area development, tribal area development. So these are, there are other programs also for, like there is your EIA, okay, environment impact assessment, that is done in Western Ghats. There is social forestry, there is agroforestry. So these terms can also be written in your conservation strategy for the Western Ghats. Then you can conclude the answer by mentioning that why is the conservation of Western Ghat important? The conservation of Western Ghat is very important because not only because it has rich biodiversity, not only because it is a biodiversity hotspot region, but also it affects the climate, it protects from the natural calamities, and also influences the atmospheric circulation. Like it has protected from the, it acts as a protection in the case of your Kerala floods 2019 and 2020. 18. So then, therefore, we need to conserve it because it protects us. It protects us. Okay. Then, how do you protect it? How do you conserve it? One, we have already outlined the strategy. What more steps we are taking? We are demarcating the ESAs. We are conducting EIAs. We are going for sustainable waste management. And also, we are going for land use zonation. So, this land use zonation, we are going for the land use zonation so that the very sensitive areas, they are kept inviolate. There is no harmful human activities, right? So this is from my side. Don't restrict yourself from what you have read recently. Try to think, try to brainstorm. As much as you brainstorm, you develop a better answer. You develop quick way of writing an answer. So try to think, try to brainstorm, and try to write in a brief manner. If you like this video, stay tuned. All the best.